Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to a new video. So tomorrow is supposed to be really nice, supposed to be in the 50s. So we're going to take the car out. I'm going to get some driving clips for you guys since I know you really enjoy them. Plus, I've been really enjoying this car immensely. And I want to take you guys along for the ride since you guys only see it in the garage basically. And I want to bring you along for the journey and the fun part about this whole entire thing. And that is actually driving it. So we're going to get some clips for you guys tomorrow. But before we do that, I wanted to go over a question that I get very, very often, pretty much on the daily. And that question is, what modifications can I do that I don't need a tune for? As we all know, the EJ motor is very, very finicky. Pretty much anything that you do performance oriented, you're going to need a tune. Anything that basically changes up the flow, changes up the dynamics, is going to confuse the car. So doing a front mount intercooler or changing up the downpipe or something like that, changing up the headers, anything that is going to increase the performance, that is ultimately going to change up the way the car flows, you're going to need a tune. But I've come up with 7 different modifications that you can do in the engine bay that are performance and reliability related that you can do to your car that you do not need a tune for. The first one, let's hop into the back, is a Catback exhaust. This is probably my most asked question. A lot of people say, hey, I bought my STI or WRX used and it came with this aftermarket exhaust. If I change it, do I need to retune or tune the car? And simply put, you do not. A Catback exhaust or simply just an axle back, you do not need a tune. All you're doing is changing the piping behind the cats, so there is no tune needed for anything like that. And doing a Catback exhaust or just an axle back is something that a lot of people love to do because a lot of people just want a little bit of extra sound. It makes the car much more fun to drive and much more enjoyable experience. So a Catback or an axle back, you do not need a tune. Next up is the bypass valve. No, I'm not talking about blow-off valves. You cannot put a blow-off valve on a WRX or STI without having issues. You need a fully recirculating bypass valve if you're going to change it up. There's 2 that I recommend running. I have run both of them. The first one being the one that's on here right now, which is the Cobb LF bypass valve, or the one that I ran in the past, which is the Turbo Smart compact bypass valve. They're both fully recirculating. They're not atmospheric. They're not 50-50. They're fully recirculating, which is definitely what I recommend. Anything else, you're going to probably run into issues down the road, so I do not recommend them. But changing up the bypass valve to something a little bit more reliable, something that's going to hold boost much stronger and much more accurately, and also looks way nicer than the stock bypass valve. I definitely recommend doing that, and you do not need a tune at all. Number 3, intercooler. More specifically, top mount intercooler. If you go to a front mount, you're going to have issues. You're going to need a tune for that simply because you're changing up the flow, you're changing up the piping, you're changing up the location of where the intercooler actually is. So that is going to require a tune. But for a stock location top mount intercooler, you do not need a tune. I'm running the Grimspeed top mount intercooler. It is in the exact same spot as the stock intercooler, so no tune needed. Simply put, this is just a much more reliable, higher capacity. It allows for much more cooling, a much higher flow than the stock intercooler. It's connected right to the throttle body. The bypass valve is in the exact same location as well. There is a wide variety of top mount intercooler aftermarket options. Again, I'm running the Grimspeed. There's ETS, there's Perrin. There's a lot of really nice options out there. So I definitely recommend picking one up if you want something a little bit more reliable. That's going to keep your motor much happier in the long run. The number 4 mod that you do not need a tune for is an AOS. This is something that I highly recommend just to keep the blow-by out of places where it shouldn't be. This is the IAG Street AOS. You can't really see it. It is the black color. They do have a competition version that is said that you need a tune for. I've heard both ways. I've heard that you don't need a tune for it. But if you just want something really simple, get the street version. You 100% do not need a tune, and it's going to keep your motor much healthier and much more reliable. And it's going to keep that blow-by out of your intake, out of your intercooler, out of your turbo. So I definitely recommend one of those, and you do not need a tune for that. Number 5, radiator. I am running the Rad, the aluminum radiator. It's a fantastic radiator, fits in the stock location. You don't need to do any modification or anything like that, but it is bigger, so you got more capacity. It's going to keep the motor much more cooler, much happier, and again, more reliable in the long run, and you do not need a tune for an upgraded radiator. Number 6 is the Get a Dom cylinder 4 cooling mod. This is something that you can't even see down there, but it takes away the heat from cylinder 4, which is prone to failing since there's a lot of heat back there with the stock headers. So putting the Get a Dom cylinder 4 cooling mod, it takes that heat away from that cylinder and the motor stays much cooler in that area. You do not need a tune for that. It's a really simple mod. It's literally just a tube with a fitting at the end that relocates the coolant to that area to keep cylinder 4 much happier and kind of consistent with all the other cylinders around the motor. And you do not need a tune for that. It's a simple install and definitely worth it. And it is under $100. And the seventh, last, and final modification that you can do to your EJ motor that does not require a tune is an upgraded oil pan. I am running the Killer Bee oil pan kit. You can't see it. I'll put a picture up for you guys, but it's the Killer Bee oil pan kit, the Killer Bee oil pickup tube, as well as the Killer Bee baffle. It holds 6 quarts of oil as opposed to the 5.1 quarts in the stock pan. Also, the Killer Bee has a much beefier and stronger oil pickup tube, which is actually the Achilles heel in the stock oil pan kit. The stock pickup tube is really weak. The welds are known and prone to breaking over time, especially in the older gens. That is not good because if that breaks, it won't be able to pick up the oil and your engine will starve of oil. And obviously you're gonna run into some issues. So I definitely recommend picking up the Killer Bee oil pan kit or the IAG oil pan kit as well. Some really nice options out there. And it's not too pricey to upgrade that. And that is something you do not need a tune for. So that rounds up my 7 modifications that you can do that are performance oriented in the engine bay. That's ultimately going to increase the reliability and keep your motor happier. And you can get some nice sound out of the car. And you do not need an access port. You don't need a dyno tune. You don't need an e-tune. You don't need anything. You can literally just buy all this stuff, put it right on the car, and it's going to perform perfectly. And actually much better because it's going to get better flow, better cooling, and overall just be much more reliable in the long run. So I definitely recommend doing at least some of those if you're not able to do all of them. So now that we got the discussion out of the way, I will catch back up with you guys tomorrow morning when we take this car out for a nice drive. to note, after all those wide open throttles, no feedback knock, only negative 1.4 fine knock learned. So like I said in my last video, you should only be concerned if there's numbers reaching over negative 2.8 if you're wide open throttle. Otherwise, if you're just cruising around town and you get the normal negative 1.4 to negative 2.8, you're totally fine. But that's RT tuning for you. No knock at watt. All right, guys, that's all I got for this one. Stuck in a little bit of traffic, so I figured I would end it here. Just want to say thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions at all about the 7 modifications that I named earlier in the video or anything else on the car, be sure to ask them below. But in the meantime, keep it clean, keep it simple, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.